So when you like one of the things I love about the book as well is it's with that Nephilim flair that you have in there.
Mhm.
It almost gives it like an Indiana Jones type of vibe, but way cooler because it's a gunfighter. So, what kind of gave you that inspiration to throw that as one of the catalysts for the character plot?
Well, when I started writing, and my closest friend, so all the guys on Renegade on that particular team
Yeah.
are based that are closest to me,
Ah.
and so the character of Frank Pierce
Mm-hmm.
is the guy that helped me write, um,
Ah.
and so like he and I are very close, and he. We had some stuff going on there with like how we kind of wanted to do it, and so the when I got down to it, I realized I was like, well, I got to have a thing. Like, what is the thing? And I was like, I don't know anything about ancient history, but I like it. Uh, I don't if you're for any of the gamers that might be listening to this. Uncharted is a huge thing that I was like, man, this
Oh,
game is awesome.
dude, so
Uh,
good,
and
so good.
so I played all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The I say new, the Tomb Raiders that came out not that long ago, a few years back, were real good, and they always kind of, like Nathan Drake, story. He's a cool character, but dude ain't gun, he's not. He's been in gunfights, but he's not a gunfighter.
Yeah.
Like Indiana Jones, man. Dr. Jones is a cool dude, super smart and lovable character. He's been in gunfights, but he ain't a gunfighter.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that was like that. And so when I sat down and we started talking, and he's like, "Do you know anything about ancient history?" And I was like, "Nothing other than it's really cool."
And it's
And
old.
I
Yeah.
just I thought about it, and it just like lightning hit me, bam, out of nowhere. And I really feel like it was planted by the Lord, by the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
And he's like, "You know a little bit about Nephilim?" And like it just hit me out of nowhere. Like it I was like, yeah, I kind of do know a little bit. And ever since that one sermon in 2005 that I heard, that seed was planted. And over the years, once or twice a year, I would just like kind of get the like, oh yeah, and kind of like look it up and do some
Mm,
stuff. And it was like, oh, that's really interesting, or that's really out there.
yeah. There's a lot of
And
that. Yeah.
that's where it and that's where it came from. And so I talked to my co-author, and I was like, "Hey man, what do you think about this?" He's like, "Oh, that's it, dude. Yeah, that's the ticket." So I buckled down right after the idea and really did a ton of research, simultaneous to while I was writing, to really like plot out the book.
So with that research, did you stumble on some really interesting things while you're doing that research study? That would first off, what are the Nephilim? Because there might be people in the audience who have no clue. And then just a
Yeah,
brief synopsis on what and who they are, and then also some really cool things that you found out.
yeah. So they are the hybrid children, male as far as we know, of angels and women. And where we get that is from Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, uh, right before the flood. So probably, Moses, who's probably the writer of Genesis, is talking about it. And all of these things are happening. It's kind of the golden age of humanity. And some translations will just say, here, I'll pull it up right now. Some translations just say the sons of God. And it's like, well, there's a lot of talk on what that means. And so
Right.
Genesis 6:4 says, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of man and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. And so that sounds like they're the good guys. But directly after that, we talk about it's how the earth was filled with violence. And so what to learn as I did all this research, and they're only mentioned by the name Nephilim one other time in Numbers 13:33, I believe, when they're going to take the promised land, uh, is that they were, let's see, how do I put it? The sons of God. Some people are like, oh, it's the godly line of Seth. But when we look at that word and what those root words mean in the older original languages, places like Job, in Job 1:4, same, and in the New Testament as well, all the way back into like Jude and stuff, we see that the sons of God are angels. And I think that, to sum it up, and done a lot of research to learn that simple thing, is that they're not talking about any other kind of, human lineage. They're talking about angels sleeping with women, creating these hybrid beings that
Yeah.
big, smart, setting themselves up as like the ruling class. And
Yeah, I mean it's essentially where the line of Goliath and stuff like that. He was just a smaller guy, but in comparison to some of the others. But I mean, like it's interesting is the Nephilim thing is becoming very popular right now.
yeah,
I've noticed it in more mainstream sources. More, it's part of almost the culture now, where it's kind of being talked about. But what's really cool is there is a lot of evidences of giant races throughout the world in every ancient culture and every ancient civilization, to include here in the U.S. Actually,
yeah,
a lot of the Native Americans in their culture, they're like, hey, this used to be the land, like they used to be the dominant race here, like it was
yeah.
giants. And there is a footprint that is fossilized in South Africa. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's in a rock, and there's a dude standing next to the footprint, and the dude's like 5'9", and the footprint is still longer than he is tall. So it's like at least 6.5 feet long. So if you take that footprint and you do the calculations to see, okay, what would that be on as far as height wise for a humanoid? It's pretty big. Like they were not
Yeah.
like tiny regular folks.
Yeah, like there's some people that think like first gen Nephilim were easily 30, 40 feet tall. Like that's huge. We did the math at work. I've got all the guys talking about all this stuff. They're all we're all keyed in on it.
Get
And
them
like
in
we
the
did
Bible,
the
yeah.
math, and a 40-foot tall Neph, as we like to call them, that a humanoid that big, their eye, like their iris, is as big as a basketball.
Dude, can
Like
you imagine that?
imagine trying to fight that dude.
Oh man, I can't. That it's like no wonder why there was so many. One, first off, if you read about David's mighty men and them defeating giants, it's like a holy smokes, these guys were amazing,
Oh yeah.
incredible warriors. But like, it's just fascinating, and also like because I believe that dinosaurs are in the Bible, they're just labeled as dragons or jackals
Hmm.
or other things like that, great serpents, and it's like, dude, a 30-foot giant is like using a dinosaur as like a pet, like or
Oh
like
yeah.
for battle. Like I think that people have this conception about the Old Testament kind of like old and boring, and it's like, dude, it's a lot more like the Odyssey than you realize, probably.
It really is. And that's I'm glad you brought that up. So Greek mythology, its heroes are Nephilim. Um, Achilles, half god, well, he's born from a sea nymph, I think, and his
Mm,
dad was human.
that's
Um,
interesting.
so, like, the stories, and that's from that line, the heroes of old, the men of renown, we have this mythology that is based on them, and people just don't realize it.